Yeah, they assume that Gloria is left-leaning.
Because she's a girl,
yeah. When in fact, she is constantly driven forward by based prophetic dreams that guide her development on Bitcoin.
Oh, does he believe that disobeying the government is a sin?
Yeah, he thought that Rosa Parks was committing a sin by sitting in the front of the bus.
We got to get him on the Hell Money podcast. We have a lot of things.
He has
to talk
so much
about.
to say.
Yeah. Me and him have a lot to talk about. And he responded saying, "Aren't you dating the ordinals guy?" as the response, which that's what they're doing for every woman that comments on anything. Yep. Lola Leitz is Shinobi's girlfriend. I'm your girlfriend. Gloria fucked her way to the top.
Inexplicably slept her way to the top.
Yeah. Good for you, Queen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Hell Money Podcast. I'm Casey RODARMOR here with my co-host, which doesn't mean anything about any sort of subservient position. Maybe I'm the co-host. Maybe she's the co-host. We're serious feminists here at the Hell Money Podcast.
Clearly.
And we're here today at the Hell Money Podcast Twitter War Room. You can tell that we have the Twitter War Room in full swing because we have Twitter open on our laptops with some choice tweets to go over. Today we're covering the filter drama.
Yeah, we're covering the drama.
Yeah, covering the drama.
We're also dressed as Labubu's.
We're also dressed as Labubu's.
And I have my prized Labubu.
Well, you need...
who's also in costume.
That's right. Yeah. It's too bad that the Labubu can't be dressed as one of us.
How would that... I guess we could put a wife beater on.
Yeah, the wife beater. The wife beater just tells you, that it's me.
Yeah, if it was a gray wife beater Labubu, that would be the Casey Labubu.
Yeah, it's too bad that these cameras don't go down because I got some juicy quads going on right now.
Yeah, your shorts are very short today.
Yeah. I like them short. You got to show off the quads.
Right.
What's the point of going to the gym unless, you're showing off your wheels?
For the bros.
That's right. Yeah.
By contrast, like I tried
She's covered up. She's basically in
a burqa.
The secular version of a
Labubu hijab.
Of a Labubu Nakib. You need the thing covering everything but your eyes too.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, the Labubu is kind of in a hijab because only the face is showing. The fur is the hijab.
The fur is the Labubu. It's part of the Labubu.
I guess it's true. It's naked except for the pumpkin.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're talking about tweets today. I don't think we've ever had an episode where we both have our laptops out.
No.
So you can see his and hers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, anyone who's watching this podcast on X, who's on X, has probably seen all the drama around the Op Return Bitcoin Core release, which happens this month. We're in costume because it's October. It's spooky season. So we're celebrating early. The whole month of October is spooky season. And that's also the Bitcoin Core 30 version 30, right? Release is sometime in October. I was trying to figure out when.
I don't know.
Do you know when? Because I saw different dates.
Release date.
I saw some things that said, it was aiming for early October, some for mid, some for like Halloween.
Yeah,
Halloween would be cool because that's the date of the white paper. The original white paper was Halloween.
Yep.
So that would be very spooky auspicious of them.
Yep.
To release it on Halloween.
I don't actually know if
Memento Mori was also released on Halloween.
That's right. I don't actually know if they have a release date set in stone. They probably have a release date target, but after they do a release, they do release candidates where they cut a branch, which could become the new version of Bitcoin Core v30 for testing. And if that goes well, then they promote it to the final candidate. They might also bring in new changes.
Who are the primary users of Bitcoin Core? Miners?
Miners use it. Anybody who runs any sort of exchange, any sort of service uses it. End users. I run Bitcoin Core. Like when I use Bitcoin, I have my Sparrow wallet, which talks to a Bitcoin Core node on my laptop.
And if you don't update Bitcoin Core, what happens?
Nothing.
Okay.
Yep.
Nothing. So nothing ever happens.
Yeah, Bitcoin is. I mean, you could probably be on version 12 or something.
And it'd be fine.
Yeah, maybe not very old versions. They start to have weird performance problems and weird behavior, but
it's like having an old iPhone.
Yeah, they basically never stop working.
Right.
Yep.
Do you think this is the most controversial Bitcoin Core release, or were there other more controversial ones in the past?
No, I think this is the most controversial Bitcoin Core release, especially because the last time there was extreme controversy over something that Bitcoin Core did, there was the SegWit and SegWit 2x and blocksize wars. The Bitcoin Core release was almost not super controversial because the SegWit 2x people wanted what was in the Bitcoin Core release and an additional block size increase on top of that.
Okay, so that what ended up happening was not controversial in the sense that the stuff that happened was agreed upon.
Yeah, people
but
wanted.
It was more controversial that Bitcoin Core didn't do the extra thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that was. Yeah. This is definitely the most. But this even feels more controversial than that. Nobody like got on Twitter and go like Bitcoin Core VX is like evil or does something bad.
Yeah, we are in a different time of discourse.
Yeah,
obviously.
It's definitely
when was the
time.
block size wars? 2018.
Dude, I don't remember. No, it was earlier than that, right? It
was before ICO?
Yeah. Ooh.
2016?
Date launch. 2017. August 2017.
Okay. Yep. So, yeah, I think discourse has evolved. Just the way that we do it.
Evolved in a way worse way. I think that,
obviously, yeah.
Yeah, like I think what happened is that 2017 was a very contentious time. And it created this very sort of the beginning of the toxic Bitcoin maxis.
Yeah.
And the toxic Bitcoin maxis are kind of nice when they happen to be right. When they're right, it's great that people are spamming the correct opinion on Twitter and like making very, very forceful arguments, right?
Well, it's always good if you have the bots, the censors, the army on your side, right?
But when those same people, because they're just idiots and they always have been idiots, not all Bitcoin maxis are idiots, obviously.
Hashtag not all maxis.
Hashtag not all maxis. Then when they get a dumbass idea in their heads and they turn the same like Twitter spam cannon on for that dumb idea, it's a much, much worse period for the discourse.
Do you think that the block size wars and SegWit, I guess the block size increase specifically, since that was the key thing, do you think that that was as technically difficult to understand as Opportune? Because I think the reason why I asked is because I think one of the big problems here, and I'm sure we'll talk about this as we go through our tabs of tweets here to review, is that you kind of have to be in like the 90th or maybe 95th percentile of technical understanding to be able to fully wrap your head around this issue, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
and most people obviously aren't in that category, but they still have opinions. You know, people have opinions, but you could, and I think we'll see this more, like we'll talk about Nick Szabo later, right? And I think Nick Szabo's response is kind of interesting because it seems like he sort of woke up from a long slumber and then was like, what's going on? And was just trying to piece it together live, which I like in some way. I appreciate seeing people think out loud. I think that's useful. It's part of why I like podcasts. And it's like the things you say on a podcast, especially when you're having a discussion, are not necessarily your final form thoughts. Ideally, you get to the final form thought by the end or when you've fully formed your opinion.
Not on this podcast.
Not on this podcast. We're just saying whatever.
Yeah.
But to me, it seemed like Nick Szabo was kind of just thinking out loud and coming to his conclusion over time. And as you see his thought process, at least from my perspective, it seems like you see like, whoa, he actually doesn't fully know what this thing is or how this thing works. And Nick Szabo is someone that people look to as like a very knowledgeable voice, right? I don't think that means that he's dumb or that he's whatever. It's just, I think you have to know a lot about this issue and have to have thought about it a lot to have a very formed opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sort of. I think that actually there's two, so we're sort of talking about like, okay, what's more complicated, the issues that came up around the block size wars and the technical issues that come up around filtering. I think they're probably actually a bit on par in terms of complexity. The issues, the complicated technical issues around filtering. Okay, so what are the technical issues around filtering? I think some of them are actually very simple. I mean, some of them are that it's this cat and mouse game, and that the spam devs, i.e. me,
right?
I'm the spam dev guys, along with Raph. Raph's also a spam dev. We could just move so much faster than the core devs, right? The core devs have a long, slow, careful release process. They rely on, getting a very decentralized, diverse group of people to agree on changes to the software and roll it out. Whereas me and Raph can respond like almost instantly to those changes, especially because the changes that Core would be making would have a lot of trade-offs and would require a lot of sort of technical consensus to develop. Whereas me and Raph would be like, all right, well, the core devs are like successfully filtering transactions or successfully filtering inscriptions, we're going to make a simple, non-contentious tweak to unbreak inscriptions. Everybody would go along with that. Everybody would like that. And like, we can do it in a day. I can do a change every single day that beats whatever spam filtering core does, no matter how exotic their filtering is. Unless they severely kneecap Bitcoin, they just can't keep up. I think that's actually very simple. I think that's very simple to understand.
That's sort of the initial.
There's more stuff.
Yeah, right. That was kind of the first piece, and I feel like that sort of was like the 2023 part of this.
Sure.
Which was the inscription spam.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, and then there's other things, which is that for a variety of reasons, even though inscriptions are cheap and you can stick up to 400 kilobytes of data in them, you might want to be able to create a transaction that commits directly, i.e. via the TXID, to the data that you want to commit to. And if you want to do that, you have to put it in the output scripts. So that means op return or financial payment outputs that look like they're transferring Bitcoin, but actually are storing data. So, and that's much worse. You don't want to push people to hide their data in financial outputs because that gets put in the UTXO set, which takes up more memory. We want to prevent the UTXO set from growing. So that's another technical issue. Another issue is that miners are financially incentivized to accept transactions that pay them money. And so all of the big miners, as far as I know, have set up direct transaction submission services where you can pay the miners to accept these non-financial transactions.
And this is like Mara's Slipstream.
Yeah.
Right, where you can submit a 4 megabyte transaction or whatever, any sort of non-standard transaction that wouldn't be relayed via the public mempool.
That's right.
You can submit it privately.
Yep. And because of that, if filtering on the main peer-to-peer network, even if it is effective, we've seen the rise of these direct submission services. And these direct submission services increase centralization in a couple ways. One of the ways is that they increase centralization is that if you have to submit your transaction to these private mempool services, you're not going to submit it to some miner that has 1% of the hash rate. You don't care if you don't get into 1% of blocks. You're going to submit it to like the top 3 miners. And those top 3 miners are going to have that additional income stream, and all the smaller miners are not. So that increases centralization. Another problem with it is that if the transactions have not been seen by the public peer-to-peer relay network, when we have this thing called compact blocks. And what compact blocks do is that when a miner finds a new block, they send out a sketch of the block to everybody that they're connected to. And if everybody who they're connected to has all the transactions in the block, has seen all the transactions that are in the new block, they can reconstruct the block with the transactions that they have, and they don't need to ask the miner for those transactions. This speeds up block propagation for those blocks whose transactions have been seen in the public mempool. And again, speeding up block propagation is good, and specifically, it also increases miner decentralization. It decreases the orphan rate, which are sort of blocks that wind up getting orphaned by forks below them that have more blocks on top of them. That is beneficial to smaller miners, reducing the orphan rate. And also, due to the way that selfish mining works, if block propagation is slower, it makes selfish mining more effective. And selfish mining is sort of the famous like 33% attack that lowers the safety margin down to 30%. So I would say that all this stuff is probably about as complicated as the issues that were involved in the block size wars. Basically, like there were a lot of the same block propagation issues. There's some of the same. There's actually, SegWit is very complicated. SegWit was a very complicated upgrade that changed a lot about how Bitcoin worked. And I actually don't think that people really understood it at all. Like people were surprised when they found out that when inscriptions happened, they're like, oh shit, SegWit enabled 400 kilobytes of like nonsense to be in our transactions. And like some of the details of how the Merkle tree is constructed, I think they're about equally complicated.
Well, SegWit wasn't the controversial aspect.
SegWit was also controversial. SegWit was controversial. There were some people who didn't want SegWit.
I thought SegWit was kind of like, okay, they got the first thing in, and then SegWit was like the victory lap after the fact that maybe should have had more.
Don't you mean Taproot? Sorry.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
Taproot.
thinking of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Taproot.
mixed it up too.
Okay, wait. So SegWit was with the block size non-increase.
No, SegWit was a block size increase.
Okay, but not as big as the big blockers wanted.
Not as big as the big blockers
And
wanted.
then Taproot came after that.
Taproot came after that.
That's what I'm thinking of. Is Taproot was this more complicated thing that maybe should have been discussed more? Da, da, da.
No, I mean,
I don't know. We've had this conversation on How Money before. I'm like just
that's
paraphrasing.
fine. It's fine. The people have forgotten already.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I would say that SegWit was probably more complicated than Taproot, because it was this major reorganization about how Bitcoin stores data. But they're both pretty complicated, and you know, when you get into the block size wars, when you're talking about, and SegWit was a block size increase. It increased the block size from 1 megabyte to roughly 2 point something megabytes. We've seen like in practice. Once you get into like, should we increase the block size? Then you get into a lot of issues like, well, how long does initial block download take? How long does it take for blocks to propagate on a network? You get into some of the same subtle like aspects. I think the interesting thing about the spam issue is that it's almost, you know, there are technical arguments to be had about what should and shouldn't done, but ultimately the foundation of the entire issue is entirely moral.
Yeah.
It's entirely like, do you think spam bad? If you think spam equals bad, then you're going to go engage in all this like lunacy. If you're like, whatever, we can ignore it, you're not going to engage in this lunacy. And ultimately for Bitcoiners, I think that is the correct opinion, being like, this is a bunch of inert data that is going into the Bitcoin blockchain. It's paying fees exactly like every other transaction. Like let's say hypothetically that we had a Mars colony. Okay? We had a Mars colony and there's 10 billion people on Mars.
How many podcasts Mars Colony?
And let's say that there is no communication between Earth and Mars. Zero communication. Except the Mars people use Bitcoin and they transmit Bitcoin transactions back to Earth to be included in the blockchain, and they get, you know, blocks by the Mars, you know, space network or whatever. In this scenario, all these extra transactions that were happening in Bitcoin would effectively be spam, right?
Right. For Earth Bitcoin.
For Earth Bitcoin. It's an entirely separate closed economy. You have no economic contact with these people. You're not exchanging any information with these people. You don't know anything about them. They're just putting transactions in the blockchain, moving their own UTXOs, moving their Bitcoin around. They're not getting any new Bitcoin. Bitcoin's not coming from Earth to Mars or going from Mars to Earth. That's exactly spam. That's exactly this like extra inert data in the blockchain. This is exactly the same thing that's happening with like inscriptions and runes. It's just this like separate inert data, this like parallel economy. And fundamentally, they're just paying for block space. That's what they're doing. They're paying for block space. And fees are even low. We just got through with sub one sat per
VByte summer.
Yeah, like how did the peak of spam hysteria come in the throes of sub 1 sat per VByte summer?
I think because none of the people that are hysterical use Bitcoin. I don't think they're sending Bitcoin around. I don't think they even know.
Yeah. Anyway, so like ultimately, like I think like being anti-spam is a hysterical, like sort of arbitrary, axiomatic position.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you should be pro-spam. I don't think that Bitcoiners should be pro-spam. All this fucking rune shit, all this inscription shit, all this BRC20 shit, who gives a shit, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin is the real important thing. All this other shit is like a fucking sideshow. The correct opinion is just to be like, whatever. Like, it's just people want to pay and put weird transactions in the blockchain for whatever like esoteric reasons that they have. Like, who cares, right?
Well, I feel like that was the response from Core for the last 2 years.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
Was inscriptions launched at the beginning of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And for a year and a half, 2 years, whatever, it was Luke Jr. being upset about the spam.
Mm-hmm.
And every serious Bitcoin dev being like, I don't really care.
Yep.
Can't stop it. Doesn't really concern me.
Yep.
It's only really with the op return stuff, which is not inscription stuff.
Nope.
You know, it's sort of, you know, you can see the butterfly effect, obviously, from inscriptions to that stuff. But it's only with the op return stuff that Core has actually started to get involved. And I guess you can kind of see that, like, if you think about it, like, okay, well, people were trying to inscribe things like 4 megabyte blocks or whatever, and then they were sending these private transactions, that you could see that as being something that would have motivated them to say, okay, how can we just reduce the number of these sort of private transactions or private mempools in general? But it's sort of a separate thing.
Yep.
Like, for a while, what you're saying was the response, and I think it was working, but something changed.
Yeah, I think it was just the understanding that there are use cases that people have that might be completely, you know, moronic, but which cause them to want to put arbitrary data in outputs that look like they're making Bitcoin payments, and that this is harmful.
Like one of the beautiful L2s or meta protocols that we reviewed on our last episode.
Right?
Well, wasn't Citria is that the beginning of all this drama?
No, but it was one of the factors. They had Citria had a design where they were going to put the data that they needed for their L2 into fake SegWit outputs that would look like normal SegWit outputs and would get added to the UTXO set. And this was one of the arguments about why the op return limit should be loosened. The big problem is that the hysterical anti-spam people see this as an endorsement of spam by Bitcoin Core.
Yeah.
And also see this as like meaningfully increasing the amount of like extra data that's going to go on Bitcoin. I think both of these are wrong. It's the increasing of the op return limit is a recognition of the fact that the data is already getting in there, that people are paying for the data to be getting into anyways, and that they are also putting it in transactions in more harmful ways. And so filters work until they don't, basically. Filters work until people are putting enough effort to get around those filters, at which point they do more harm than good because they slow block propagation. They encourage private submission to miners. So Core is acting completely pragmatically here. They're not pro spam at all. They just don't really give a shit about spam. And they acknowledge that, like, listen, there's no way you can censor bytes based on the intention of the person putting those bytes into the blockchain. You just can't. You have to like mind read people. So like, okay, we're going to raise this limit. And this is seen by the hysterical anti-spam people as being a pro-spam position, when in fact it isn't. It's purely a pragmatic position. And there you go. Yeah.
This kind of gets into the first tweet we're going to talk about, which is Calle's long post about the bridge. He was trying to bridge technical and non-technical users to talk about spam.
Yep.
I mean, it's a very long post. I recommend reading it. I'm sure we'll link all the stuff in whatever. But the main thing that he talks about is how proof of work is the spam reducing mechanism.
That's right. Yep.
And I think it's interesting. He goes through kind of like, okay, we have things like CAPTCHAs or logins. Like we have all these centralized ways of preventing spam.
Yep.
We can't do that on Bitcoin.
Right.
The way that we do that in a decentralized system is by making people pay fees.
Yep.
And that's the whole idea. I don't understand why this is so, like, isn't this the point of Nostr? Isn't this the point? Like, that's the idea behind all these like Bitcoin social media platforms. Like, is like, we're going to get rid of bots because you're going to have to pay to post, or it's going to be some sort of barrier to entry. It's the same thing here.
Yep. So
I don't understand. These people all use Nostr. They all believe in these like decentralized social media things of anti-spam, Just apply it to Bitcoin. It's the same thing. And it even applies, sorry to interrupt, but it even applies to the Mars colony analogy, right? Where let's say that Mars is a non-prosperous community and they're not really sending very many transactions and they don't have Bitcoin to pay for their fees. Well, they're not going to be as effective at spamming the Earth Bitcoin blockchain with their transactions that are completely irrelevant to us because they don't have the fees to participate in the Earth Bitcoin. But if they are a prosperous colony that's digging up rare Earth minerals, or I guess in this case it'd be rare Mars minerals, and they're sending them back to Earth, or actually they're not, right? In this situation, our economies are totally separate. They just have a very thriving economy and they just happen to use Earth Bitcoin. then they could price out our transactions.
Yep.
And then we're kind of the spam
Yep.
at that point.
Yep.
Like it's an arbitrary mechanism, or I guess it's an arbitrary distinction to say this is spam and this is not spam
Yep.
in some ways.
And Calle's whole point is just that like proof of work is the only way to deal with spam in a decentralized system.
Yeah.
Proof of work exists in two forms of Bitcoin. The primary proof of work, which is on blocks, and having a proof of work on requirement on blocks makes it costly to create blocks. And that rate limits blocks. You can't spam the Bitcoin network with blocks. And then derived from proof of work is Bitcoin, the asset itself, sort of like this crystallized proof of work that you can only receive in the first place by creating a block that is used to pay fees on the network. So proof of work creates the scarce asset, and then the scarce proof of work created asset is used to rate limit transactions on the network. And that is the only form of spam prevention we have that is useful. That's the only form. Like there is nothing else. There is no way. There's no effective way to distinguish between spammy and non-spammy transactions if they pay a fee. And I think this is part of where people get stuck, because superficially there are ways to figure it out. Like, okay, what if you why can't we filter inscriptions? And inscriptions appear clear as day in the witness as op true, op false, op if, board, right? Why don't we filter them? Well, because tomorrow, me and Raf could make a pull request that made it, well, what you do is you do like 0 + 1, or 0 or like 1 - 1 op if, which would have the exact same effect as op false. And then you'd have the inscription. And then why couldn't we filter that? Well, because, I could do X, I could do Y, we could split it among multiple inputs. We could do all this like crazy fucking bullshit to get around whatever limits. And while you were wasting all this like dev time and dev effort on these like pointless cat and mouse game, you're taking away time, effort, and work on making Bitcoin better.
Yeah, I mean, Mechanic, when we posted our previous episode, Filters Don't Work, Mechanic replied to the episode and then subsequently blocked Hell Money Podcast immediately after replying.
Yeah.
Thanks for the engagement. Love that. And he said something like, local burglar says that locks don't work or something like that. And it's like, yeah, I actually don't believe that the lock on the door to my house is really going to convince burglars not to rob me. I think it's the fucking cops that are going to put them in jail. You need a centralized authority to like the idea that that's the thing that prevents is like, oh, if we just have these filters, these things won't happen. These bad guys that are spamming, they simply will be deterred by the lock on the door. Like that's not even a good analogy at all.
And the funny thing is that like, there's inscriptions, which use the witness. Absolutely no problems for inscriptions. Inscriptions work great.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Inscriptions aren't even really involved in this at
not
all.
even involved. And then runes aren't even really involved in this at all. Like, we designed runes very carefully to fit inside of 80-byte fucking op returns. We can fit that shit in 80-byte op returns. We don't need the bigger op returns. We'll take them, whatever, but it doesn't meaningfully change like what you can do with runes. So I don't even understand like two of the most popular protocols on Bitcoin are like working fine. And if Calle's like, if Mechanic is like local robber says locks don't work, it's like, yeah, those locks
don't work.
Don't fucking
they have
work,
not worked.
Bro. They haven't worked in forever.
That's the thing. It's just yeah. I don't know. I mean, obviously the Knots camp at this point, they're not even doing they're not even attempting a technical argument. No. They're not at all.
I mean, people have like fully divided into camps and like, I mean, I just liberally mute people. They have I really see these posts and I really want to respond. I want to respond. But then I realize that like when you see a dumb post, your reward for responding is going to be an even dumber response to your response.
I know.
Right? You're not going to finally get them in a corner. You know what I mean?
I know. I had that moment because like Chris Guida, I think his name is. He's one of the Knots guys. I tweeted something about Knots, whatever. I did some shit posting and he responded saying, "Aren't you dating the Ordinals guy?" as the response, which that's what they're doing for every woman that comments on anything. Lola Leitz is Shinobi's girlfriend. I'm your girlfriend. Gloria fucked her way to the top.
Slept her way to the top.
Yeah. Good for you, queen. Like it's in that. And then I just like responded like, "No, I'm just a girl." And then I just had like a fucking like stupid conversation with him where he just tried to be like, Well, I didn't mean that. You just have a podcast with him, right? And he tried to like totally walk it back. And I had to end it by being like, hey, I think you made a minor flub. It's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like you're just sort of, and then he responded saying like, fine, believe whatever you want to believe. And I was like this, I got nothing out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The mute button is great. The mute
I know.
button is really
I do use the mute
It's
button.
also really
liberally.
nice
I also don't
when
have X on my phone, right?
Yeah.
So I don't, it's only when this stuff is happening and I'm clocked in.
Yeah.
And I am paying attention to it. For the most part, I don't, but it's interesting because we have been clocked into this debate, obviously, because of inscriptions for so long.
Yeah.
And some of the people like Calle, like Nick Szabo, maybe haven't had to, they've taken the approach of having a non-opinion for a long time. And now they have to have an opinion because Bitcoin Core is doing something.
Yep.
And the Knots people would prefer Bitcoin to not do anything.
Yep. To not do anything.
To not do anything. I don't know. I mean, Twitter isn't consensus. I think that's an important thing here.
Very
These
important.
are just people engagement farming for the most part. I don't know what Ocean Mining's intentions are. I mean, obviously, I've said Luke Jr.'s body swapped. I've said like Luke Jr. is an MK Ultra kill switch.
Isn't Bitcoin Mechanic a diaper fetishist?
Is he? Where'd you get that?
I don't know. We can start that rumor though.
Oh, yeah, you saw that. You're one to talk. Wearing the Labubu hood.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Um,
Thank God the camera only goes from the waist up.
Right, you don't want to see
my
what's going
massive
on.
diaper.
You were talking about your juicy thighs in the beginning.
That's right.
It's because you're wearing a diaper. That's the short. Yeah, I don't know. I think more will be revealed. I mean, maybe we can continue on actually through all our links.
Yeah.
Let's actually talk about the Luke hard fork stuff next, because I think that's kind of like, I don't know what Ocean Mining's intentions are. I have my schizo thoughts about Luke, Jack, whatever. But it's not, it is very weird to think that this is just a Catholic crusade. Do you know what I mean?
It's not a Catholic crusade. It's Luke is a
Sedevacanist crusade.
Luke is idiosyncratic. Like he's a singular autistic force.
But like, it's weird. It just, it's so, if the Occam's razor explanation is that Luke is just a crazy person and this is just a crazy person's moral crusade, that it's just so hard for me to understand how it has become so big. Do you know what I mean?
No, I mean, I've made this point a bunch of times, which I think that Bitcoin has inculcated a fundamentalist like wing in the Bitcoin culture.
Right.
And they're kind of random. It's like whatever
but why
they
do they
get
like Luke?
Because Luke is the only like real dev. Like as much as Luke is kind of like a clown, he's technically proficient. He can manage a Bitcoin repo, he can merge code, he can do releases. And so he's the only person who will like put together this like crazy like release,
but
right?
they didn't care about, I guess they did care about shitcoining and people doing NFTs. They didn't like that. I guess Luke is the one who sort of popularized the more recent kind of like, oh, they're going to put child porn on Bitcoin thing. That is, I guess it didn't all come from Luke. That makes more sense. Yeah, so I guess it was that they were mad that people were making money on NFTs. That was the first thing, because they think that's evil because they can only see things in the framework of whatever political argument they were in like 3 years ago. And then Luke sort of had his separate moral crusade, and he kind of co-opted the whole thing.
And Knots is old. Luke has been on...
Right, he's been doing his thing.
He's been on
He's just getting his moment.
Yeah, he's been on an anti-spam crusade forever, since like, I don't know, like 2014 or something, 2013. And now finally, like, there's been an intersection of the Bitcoin hardcore people with Luke's like weird anti-spam thing.
Yeah, it's an unholy alliance or a holy alliance.
A holy alliance.
Yeah, it does. You're right. It does kind of remind me of like the neocons and the evangelicals lining up in the Republican Party during the Bush era, where it's like, you guys actually have nothing in common except the one thing that you agree on here, and you just have sort of married each other. Yeah, and you're doing that. I mean, maybe this is actually let's do the Luke hard fork thing first. Yeah, the next thing we wanted to talk about is there was an article from The Rage which is a fitting name for doing a lot of rage baiting, as all of this is, that was Luke's texts, leaked texts from Luke that were claiming that he was planning to hard fork Bitcoin. And it's all these like Signal screenshots.
Yeah, it's not even clear to me that it's a hard fork.
That was kind of what I got from it.
Yeah.
Also, I say a lot of stuff over text. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm planning.
Yeah, I see the GCs.
You know what's going on in the GCs. Like, I don't know that anything that I say in text would indicate my actual intentions or plans. So I think that's one thing here. Obviously, I felt vindicated seeing those texts because I've been banging the Luke is an MK Ultra kill switch body swap victim for however long. And I also said that I thought that they would hard fork eventually, that these guys are the new Craig Wright, yada, yada, yada. Like, it was vindicating for me to see that, yeah, like they are at least like considering that in some way. But what is the actual, what was it, ZKP?
Yeah,
what was he talking about?
It's very complicated. First off, it really does sound like this is a half-baked idea.
Yeah,
he's just Luke is coming up with.
Vibing in the DMs.
He also says some contradictory things. He says, how complex would it be to zero knowledge prove that a single transaction is valid so the verifier only needs the TXID and confirm the inputs consumed and outputs created? So this is a idea that hypothetically, if a transaction with undesirable content was mined, nodes could drop that transaction from their history of the blockchain, from all the transactions that they stored, and instead store a zero knowledge proof that proved that the transaction ID, that transaction's ID destroyed certain inputs and created certain outputs. And this would be a way that nodes could stop storing certain undesirable old transactions. He mentions a zero knowledge proof. I'm trying to figure out what exactly he means by this. I don't know if it's a zero knowledge proof just of the transaction or that the signatures were valid. Maybe he just means of the transaction. And then you have a multi-sig where like some trusted authority has to sign off on this zero knowledge proof. So it's not clear if it's like invoking a zero knowledge proof is like, well, you don't need it to be trusted. You don't need a multi-sig sign off if it's a fully trustless zero knowledge proof. But if it's only if it's only committing to the inputs and outputs and you're not proving that scripts and signatures were valid, then yeah, I guess you would need a multi-sig to sign off on it.
So in this situation, I'm looking at the text now.
And I guess it would be a hard fork because old nodes wouldn't be able to sync the chain if all of the other nodes had dropped this transaction.
Yeah, he's just vibing.
He's just
vibing on it though. I it's like,
this thing is so complicated to me. Like, listen, guys, it's been possible to put CSAM in Bitcoin for a long time. And the best thing to do is to fucking shut up about it. Like, don't talk about it. Like, I don't want fucking CSAM in the blockchain. Nobody wants CSAM in the blockchain. You could do it forever, okay, with a small minority amount of hash rate. So like, don't talk about it. Don't bring it to anybody's attention. And if it does happen, you can't stop it. And your best bet is to argue that Bitcoin node operators are not liable because they're not like that data is not like being viewed. It's not like, you know, when you download Bitcoin Core, every inscription, the image of that inscription like appears on your computer. That's just data on your hard drive. If you're not looking at it, like, it's basically not there.
But that's why I just don't believe that Luke's actual intent is to do something about CSAM. It's like he has his own thing that he's trying to do.
I think Luke is actually, you can kind of take Luke at face value.
If you don't think he's body swapped.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's body swapped.
I mean, I'm looking at the text and he says the ones that they have highlighted are where he's saying probably would have a multi-sig sign off each ZKP. Would that multi-sig have to hold the evil spam?
No, it would see the CSAM once, and then it would create this zero knowledge proof, and then they would delete the content.
Okay, so you would have to have. Again, I love to do this like, you know, village, medieval village analogy.
Yep.
You'd have to have a council of elders.
Yep.
The multi-sig that would have to. They'd have to be like the. What are the Facebook moderators that have to see like the ISIS beheading videos and then remove them from Facebook? They would have to be doing that.
Yep.
right? And then they'd have to be like, no. And they'd have to make the ZKP, and then everyone would have to be like,
Yep.
elders that have to witness man-made horrors beyond my comprehension. What is the ZKP?
Which even I don't even know if that's like a good argument, because we're really talking about a legal argument. And so maybe it's better if you're like, yeah, I had no idea that Bitcoin contained CSAM at all, instead of being like, yeah, I know that my node is downloading CSAM, but I got this like proof that I could delete it, and I knew that it was there. You know, like, why didn't you report it? Well, that's where I'm
like, is the multi-sig then the multi-sig holders or whatever, you know, the multi-sig council of elders, are they then sort of sacrificing themselves to the legal system, where it's like, I didn't actually have to see it. The node is like, I just trusted the ZKP multi-sig, and the ZKP multi-sig is like crucified like Jesus on the cross.
That's right. Yeah, because they have to look at the CSAM.
Right, exactly. So I think is Luke going to hold the multi-sig?
Presumably.
Okay.
I mean, presumably, if that's his idea, that he would be, I mean, presumably it would be like built into knots.
So Luke is going to be a multi-sig key holder.
But again, this is like just
I'm
Luke,
just, I'm spinning it out. We're vibing on it. He's vibing on it. We're all vibing on it. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this world, Luke has a knots fork that becomes the dominant form of Bitcoin, where you, as the Bitcoin node runner, just has to listen to the multi-sig council of elders who looks at the CSAM and then deletes it, and then tells you, hey, here's what's in here. You didn't want to see it, NSFW filter or whatever. And then if the government is like, hey, we're going to come after you for this, the multi-sig is kind of the one to go for, because the node runners would be like, well, I just listened to the ZKP from the multi-sig, right?
Yep.
So I think Luke should have to be the multi-sig.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
He should have to go down for this.
That's right.
If this is his proposal. I'm just spinning, if he's listening.
You can censor a transaction from the blockchain, but afterwards you have to gouge your eyes out.
I think he has to be crucified like Jesus. I think he might like that.
That's what he wants.
I know, that's my point. Like, I think this could be a good sort of wrap up to the whole arc.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he goes on to say, I mean, right now the only options would be Bitcoin dies or we have to trust someone, ... ZKP is strictly better. Like tongue out emoji.
Yeah.
I liked that tongue out emoji from him. But I mean, when he says trust someone, he means him.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the thing I think is interesting in all this is, and also who leaked these texts? Like, who was he talking
pretty
to?
Bad faith.
It's pretty
leak these fucking texts.
Bad faith. I mean, obviously I love that they did this because I love gossip and tea, but pretty bad faith of them to do this. Because he's obviously just spitballing. Like, he's just vibing.
Yep.
He's speaking to who he thinks is a trusted person, I would think. Maybe that's his mistake. I mean, he has issues, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting here where, I mean, he really does just want to control Bitcoin. That's just to me like, okay, if you could take Luke at face value as like a insane person, sure, then you can't read anything into any of his intentions. But to me, it just feels like he just wants to control Bitcoin. He wants to have authoritarian control over it.
I mean, I think Luke has a bunch of crazy interlocking beliefs that lead to some very weird behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah. I think Luke thinks that if the government said that Bitcoin was illegal, he would just, maybe the best thing is for Bitcoin to be made illegal in the US, because then if Luke continues to work on Bitcoin, he's committing the sin of disobedience, at which point Luke would just kind of go away.
Oh, does he believe that disobeying the government is a sin?
Yeah, he thought that Rosa Parks was committing a sin by sitting in the front of the bus.
We got to get him on the Hell Money podcast. We have a lot of things.
He has
to talk
so much
about.
To say.
Yeah. Me and him have a lot to talk about. Okay. Anyway, I mean, the I guess kind of main point there was he's not really planning a hard fork. He's vibing. He's vibing. Yep. He's trying to figure stuff out. But yeah, I think it is. To me, it just feels like the logical conclusion of all of this is a hard fork. For them. You know, if I was the Knots headquarters and I was like, I'm really trying to push this. I really want this to happen. Like, what is the way to make this happen?
Yeah, I think it's actually just going to fade away.
No, I know. Yeah. I'm saying that's what probably will happen in reality. But let's say you are head of ops at Knots. You're a Nazi and you want this to succeed.
But I mean, we're just imagining somebody who's like not pragmatic at all and they're just complete idiots.
You could be pragmatic, but your goal is to get Knots to succeed.
Yeah, but there's no way a hard fork would succeed. There's no way a hard fork run by
What's
this,
your
like,
best option after that?
Complain.
Complain.
Yeah.
So complain on Twitter.
Tweet.
So you think never would hard fork be the thing to do for them?
Because I think they would fail, and I think they know they would fail.
Yeah.
And that would be a point where it would be like, okay, well, you tried to hard fork, the hard fork was rejected. Like, but we still need to listen to you complain. Like, by hard forking and failing, they remove their own legitimacy.
See, but this is why I compare him to Craig Wright and why I call them both Manchurian candidates, is because if you look at what Craig Wright did, I mean, nothing about that seemed like it would succeed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you would never make the decisions Craig.
No, I mean, Craig is
made.
nuts. Like Craig argued that the Bitcoin core developers had like deprived him of some of his Bitcoin and should change Bitcoin to like move some Bitcoin back under his control because he had like lost the keys. I mean, like Craig Wright was like a lunatic.
Yeah, but so is Luke.
Yeah.
So like, see what Craig Wright did, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like BSV, he tried to legally do whatever to get at the Bitcoin core developers and essentially like get them to stop working on Bitcoin. Like, to me, that just feels like the obvious course of action for the Knots people, or maybe just for Luke specifically, because for Luke, this is, it feels like Luke's going to die by this cause, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And I think you're right that it will just fade into irrelevance, much like Craig Wright has faded into irrelevance. BSV has faded into irrelevance, right?
Yep.
All these things have faded into irrelevance. They haven't worked. I believe Bitcoin is fine regardless. But to me, it just feels obvious that that's where they have to go with it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, does that make sense? You know, like, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I think maybe Luke has always displayed knowledge of the fact that a hard fork would fail. Like, Luke has never really proposed a hard fork. I think maybe this ZKP thing is if there was CSAM mined in a block, and then if there was like crazy penalties for node runners that actually like the government started going after node runners, then he would follow up with this like proposal.
See, but it almost feels like that's what he's trying to make happen.
I mean,
he's trying to draw attention to this. He's trying to create a situation.
I believe what Luke says. Like, I believe that what Luke. Like, I think Luke like twists words to like suit his meaning, but overall, I think Luke is like a straightforward person.
Let us know in the comments.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Like, comment, and subscribe. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Nick Szabo, which I mentioned earlier. I mentioned Nick Szabo in the context of this just being something that might be difficult to wrap your head around, even if you are intelligent and genuinely technical.
Yeah.
That if you just don't know the details, there are just aspects that will evade you. And to me, that seems like what's happened with Nick Szabo.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I don't understand about I don't understand. Like, Nick Szabo posts multiple times about op returns being able to be pruned without altering the ability of financial archive nodes to serve all the financial transactions, sans the op return transactions. I don't understand how that would work. In order to blocks commit to transactions by their transaction ID. So in order to calculate the transaction ID, you need the whole transaction, and that includes the data in the op return. So if you don't have the op return data in a transaction, you cannot calculate the TXID, so you can't prove that this transaction was in this block. So I don't know. I think Nick Szabo might be a little bit confused about this idea. Like, I don't know. He's even saying that it would be better to incentivize non-financial data to be an op return rather than the witness if archival nodes are given the ability to non-disruptively delete that data, when in fact it's easier to prune the witnesses than the op returns. Like, but
that's what I'm saying is like,
yeah, but basically I'm agreeing with you. He just doesn't, I don't think that he gets it. I don't think that that's it.
I don't think he gets it. I don't think he knows what's going on. And I don't even mean that as an insult. Like, you wouldn't know what's going on unless you knew what was going on and were actively tapped in, which it seems like he hasn't been.
Yeah, he's been gone for a long time.
He's just trying to figure out stuff live.
Yep.
In the replies.
Yeah, he's been reply tweeting like 20 times a day, racism is not a sin.
Okay.
To different tweets.
What's going on with people?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. He's also got the thin blue line profile picture, which is like fine.
Wait,
whatever.
What even is that?
It's the laser.
I think it's the laser eyes.
Pro cop thing.
Oh, that's his banner.
Yeah, it's his banner. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, he's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
See, I don't have sentimental feelings towards any of these people because I didn't grow up this way.
I kind of have sentimental feelings.
I know
towards
you do.
Szabo,
That's why
because
I
he wrote a
bring it
great
up.
article called "Shelling Out" about the origins of money.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, my version of that would be like the Red Scare girls. You know,
like the Red Scare girls.
Like they say stuff all the time, and I'm like,
favor of knots. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like you know, I don't have like these people don't evoke a certain feeling for me. I like Greg Maxwell, but that's just I like him.
Yep.
That doesn't really. I'm now referencing Charlie Spears, who, you know, CB Spears, the Block Space Media podcast and the Hell Money podcast. We really are the Bitcoin season 2 podcast, and we are misinformation. He is information. Charlie is on it. He has the best explanations. He posts instantly when things happen, and he tries to distill things for a very simple, non-technical audience, and he does a great job. Meanwhile, we just do whatever over here. So definitely just, you know, go subscribe to Charlie Spears wherever you can find him instead of Hell Money Podcast. But he tweeted, or I guess he wrote a newsletter about Adam Back, Nick Szabo, Andrew Polstra, and Greg Maxwell all weighing in on the debate, which I do feel like we have woken up the sleeping giants. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, because it's only Nick Szabo who's like new to this conversation. And he's just like some dude.
Adam Back's been very active recently, like more than usual, I would think.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
It's like they usually haven't been. I feel like everyone's kind of weighing in now, you know? Like most people were doing the approach of just ignore it. Doesn't matter. You can't do anything about it. Now everyone's weighing in.
Yeah, I'm looking at Nick Szabo's tweets and I'm like, what? The core argument I've heard is that one can hide data in other ways that are not prunable. Op return data is prunable. I think he's confusing whether or not the data is added to the UTXO set to whether or not it's prunable. Like op return data op return outputs can be pruned from the UTXO set, but that data can't be pruned from the data that you store and serve to other nodes, which is the transaction data. I don't get it.
He's just thinking out loud.
Yep.
I don't think he has an opinion yet.
Yeah.
See, this is again, don't do the strong opinions weekly held thing, guys. Like, why? Just don't have an opinion on most things. You know?
Yep.
If you really know about something, then you can have an opinion. But for the most part, don't have a strong opinion because you probably just don't know anything.
Yeah.
So I don't think Nick Szabo is expressing a strong opinion. I think he's just thinking out loud. But because we seek opinions, so we want people to take a side.
Yep.
It's like everything that he says, people are dissecting, being like, oh, now he thinks this. Now he thinks he's just vibing. Luke's just vibing in the DMs with a trusted friend.
Vibing out of
control. He lost a friend. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah.
He lost a friend. Yeah, I don't know that really you can get much from, I don't know, like maybe Nick Szabo will land on something educated, but it just seems like he's not there yet.
Yep. I also think that like Adam Back also seems a little bit confused on this. Like his idea of creating like a prunable space where this data could, basically Ethereum has this. Ethereum has something called blob space, where blob space is data.
Oh, they did blobscriptions.
Blob space is data, which is each transaction can have some amount of blob space. The Ethereum block has up to, I don't know, like a megabyte of blob space. I don't know where it actually is. And this data can't be used inside of transactions. It can't be used like to, whatever, like, this data can be like, and it's only retained for a certain period of time. I think it's retained for like 2 weeks or like 3 weeks or 18 days or something. I forget. And so I think the only way to create like a more prunable space in Bitcoin that's like more prunable than witness data would be to create blob space. But then you'd be forking Bitcoin. You'd have a Bitcoin soft fork to create a space for spam, which is like nobody's gonna fucking go for that.
Yeah, that's like the worst.
So like
that's the worst outcome for both sides.
Yeah, you're telling people that like, okay, like we can like give the spammers more space to put their bullshit. Like that's a non-starter. That's a complete non-starter. So I'm also kind of confused about Adam Back's perspective. And also, I don't even know if inscriptions would use that blob space. Like, oh, okay, like the data can just be pruned, like it can just go away.
You wouldn't want that.
No.
It's a worst of both worlds.
It's the worst of both worlds. Yeah, you would, if the default configuration was that nodes would delete this data after a week or 4 weeks or whatever it is. The problem is that unless you actively ran a large network of archive nodes that did not delete this data, you would have a hard time syncing the full history of this data if you wanted it, because the random nodes that you connected to it would not have the historical data. And so like inscriptions wouldn't use this. I wouldn't use this. Like I would fucking stay away from this bullshit. So yeah, very confusing things. And I think that this is like, I think that there's a strong divide between people who are very like technically in the weeds. Like Greg Maxwell and Andrew Polstra are both very technically in the weeds. And so their ideas and thoughts on this reflect that technical in-depth understanding.
Yeah.
Whereas other people who are not so deep in technical in the weeds, their ideas are like high level and theoretical and ultimately kind of don't make any sense, because it's like, yo, you can't prune op returns. Yo, witnesses are more prunable than op returns. Yo, you're not going to get Bitcoin to adopt blob space. And even if you could, the spammers wouldn't want that shit. So I see there's a very like, I think it's impossible to understand things without understanding the details. Like I strongly believe that. And throughout my like programming career, I've encountered other programmers who seem to not operate that way. They're like, oh yeah, it's just, you know, whatever, this theoretical bullshit. I'm like, no, like show me the code, like show me the integers, like what are the numbers that the computers are going to transmit along the network? Like it's not good enough to understand. It's not good enough for me to say like, oh yeah, it works this way. You don't need to understand the details. I need to know the details. And once I know the details, I can understand the system. And I firmly believe that that's actually the only way that you can understand. I don't think that if you understand like what the bytes are in a transaction, where they go, what commits to the what is committed to by the TXID, what the block commits to, I don't think you can, and you've thought about this a lot, I don't think you can really have a very meaningful opinion on this.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 years has really been just a kill your heroes experience over and over
except
and over
for
again.
G. Maxwell and Andrew Polstra, who are, you know,
they're not my heroes. I just like them.
They have the best beards.
They do have the best beards.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just, you know, just
both
because someone
gingers, maybe.
Isn't G-Max just like gray?
He's a graying ginger.
Is he? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. No, but it's like just because someone had a good opinion in a different situation doesn't mean that they now have a good opinion.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
It really has to just be the situation as it is.
Yep.
Kind of like an aside, but what is consensus? Like in the Bitcoin sense. What is consensus? What does that actually mean?
This podcast is over.
Like, I don't understand Bitcoin at all.
I mean, consensus is a fuzzy concept. Basically, the set of rules that the overwhelming majority of Bitcoin nodes that have actual users behind them are enforcing. That's consensus. It's sort of this collective thing that arises out of the rules that nodes are enforcing. And it's very fuzzy because it's like, well, which nodes, right? If you start up a node that enforces different rules, does that change consensus? And it's like, no, not really, because there's not any like economic activity behind that node. So yeah.
Yeah, I think.
And then there's also technical consensus, which is like,
that's right. What I was going to ask is like, what would you describe that as social consensus?
No, that's like network consensus. That's like
network
Bitcoin block rules,
which is different. Yeah. Social consensus would be like, we all agree.
Then there's like technical consensus. I mean, the technical consensus is that we should raise the op return limit. That is the technical consensus. And the reason that's technical consensus is because everybody who disagrees with that is stupid and making the same nonsense arguments over and over again.
Well, rephrased differently, it's that it's already happening.
No. I mean, like, consensus.
Right? Like it's already
consensus.
It's already the reality is that the op return limit is already being raised in non-standard transactions that are getting into blocks. And so to acknowledge reality.
Well, now there's like many different versions of consensus.
Well, okay, but your version was everyone who doesn't agree is stupid.
But it's true, man.
Sure,
it's true.
But that's not really. I think it's important to understand these different styles of consensus and to actually make it clear, because I do feel like that's ultimately the debate that's being had right now. Is there are a lot of people who think Twitter is consensus.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Well, I mean, there I think, yeah.
But then there's even other kinds of consensus.
I think there is a confusion about like technical consensus. I'm just talking about like social technical consensus that happens before a change is made, before any code gets written. That actually does have to ignore stupid people. It does. Otherwise, there would never be any way to make a decision because some idiot will always show up and have a different opinion.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I feel like it really is like a new style of governance is emerging with Bitcoin, probably with other things too. But Bitcoin is obviously a strong example of it because it's like a multi-trillion-dollar asset at this point. But we're essentially like walking around blind, like figuring out the rules of this new form of governance. And I think that a lot of what crypto is trying to do is being like, oh, well, this is the form of governance. Like we're going to do DAOs. You know what I mean? Or like whatever they're like, this is what it means to have decentralized governance. And Bitcoin is kind of the only one that's actually doing it, but it's not doing it from a top down way of being like, these are the rules. It's doing it by just figuring it out as it goes. And so to me, it's like, I see it as like there's these branches of government, like there's the core devs, there's the miners, and then maybe there's like the economic nodes, which would be like the exchanges or just like, highly active users. And by highly active, I don't mean they tweet 20 times a day, right? It's like, and have Bitcoin in the bio. I mean, they're sending billions of dollars a day or whatever it is, or however many Bitcoin a day. And consensus, I don't know, I'm trying to think through this out loud, but consensus is between those three parties. Like, would you agree with that?
Which three parties?
Miners, devs, and economic nodes.
Not really, because there's we've talked about different kinds of consensus. We've talked about like technical consensus, which is devs and users. We've talked about network consensus, where miners aren't actually special in that at all. Miners don't have any special weight to deviate from consensus. If a miner mines an invalid block, then it's invalid. It doesn't make it valid because they put a proof of work stamp on it.
Who decides what's valid in that case?
That's like network level code consensus.
Yeah.
The rules that the economic supermajority have running reject that block.
Right. So consensus is more, oh God, I don't know.
The problem is that there's different kinds of consensus.
Yeah.
Right. There's the code. We talk about a block being in consensus if like the rules are valid, or being not in consensus if it doesn't follow the rules. And then there's like technical consensus, which is like, well, like what do the like large set of people who are like roughly reasonable agree on?
For Bitcoin Core.
Yeah, for Bitcoin Core, there's consensus within like the development conversation of Bitcoin Core. And there's also like the consensus of users who choose to adopt Bitcoin Core, new versions of Bitcoin Core or not, who choose to run Bitcoin Core or not. So yeah, there's a lot of consensus. It's all very fuzzy.
So, okay, the technical consensus.
It's good to think about. It's interesting to think about consensus for currencies. Like, for example, maybe the US dollar is a complicated example, but there have been many times particular coins that have been popular to accept. The word dollar, it comes from the word taler, which means valley, which was a silver coin minted, I don't remember when, 1200, 1300, 1400, 1500, no idea, that just became very popular and people accepted that dollar. And why was that particular dollar coin useful? Well, it's because you could kind of go anywhere and anybody would look at it and go, okay, that's valid, I'll accept that, right? And that's what gave it value. And that's a very complicated thing. Once one person doesn't accept that dollar, does that mean that consensus is broken? Well, not really, kind of. It's kind of weird and fuzzy, you know? So it's a similar thing with Bitcoin, the currency. Except acceptance of Bitcoin, the currency, is also tied to a specific set of rules that validate blocks that you only accept currency which your node tells you the rules were followed in the creation and transfer of that Bitcoin. It's all very complicated.
It is complicated. I don't know. It's like, I think this is, we're just so used to thinking we live in a democracy.
We're so used to rules-based, bureaucratic decision making where people vote and there are councils and whatever. Yeah, like I think it almost feels like people think that the Bitcoin core devs are like your congressman or something, and that by yelling on Twitter you would vote or not vote for a dev to then be a part of the core dev council. And they also expect there to be some formal governance process, and they're confused when it's missing.
Yeah.
They're like, well, how do these decisions? Oh, they don't get made by a vote. Maybe we need to have like on-chain voting and like proof of stake.
That's what I mean,
whatever.
Where crypto is trying to like formalize these things in sort of top-down ways.
Yeah.
By being like, oh, well, this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
But even, I mean, it is kind of, I feel like Bitcoin core devs are kind of doing their best, but it's obviously not, I don't know. It does seem like a vulnerable system in a lot of ways.
I think it's actually not vulnerable specifically because of that. I think any formal process is very easy. Any formal process has weaknesses.
You got to know the game to rig it.
Yeah, once you have a game, then you can rig it. And Bitcoin is much more complicated. You've just got to convince a whole bunch of people to like do this thing, right? And there's all these stakeholders that are like slow to move and need to be convinced.
I mean, you could probably have a decent amount of influence on Bitcoin if you just put money towards Bitcoin core devs. But I think the extent to which you could influence things would be limited. Like you could probably get your thing worked on and pushed forward. But it like the scope of what category of things that could happen for are limited.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, I think that if you did want to influence Bitcoin's direction, you would fund a lot of core developers that would have to work for a long time just doing very normie Bitcoin core stuff. And then when you wanted to make a change, you would like activate them, and then they would all inexplicably be in favor of your change.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think this is...
I don't think that's what's happening.
I don't think this is what's happening. And furthermore, I even think that it would be hard to do. I think it would be hard to get a bunch of people who would be able to do normie good Bitcoin core work for like 5 years and then suddenly Manchurian candidate. I think very few people would be willing to do that or capable of doing that. I think it's very unlikely.
And I think even within that, like you're still constrained by kind of like the Overton window of what ideas are allowed within
you could
the
only
changes.
Like maybe
you could nudge things.
Yeah,
in a
maybe you
direction.
could get like the upper turn limit back.
Right, exactly. Like you could,
but you couldn't get something crazy passed, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You couldn't really put in something that would be crazy. It's more that you could nudge things that are already moving in a certain direction more in the direction you wanted them to go.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I also included a tweet from AJ Towns talking about I don't know, Hodlanot said that we can't have left-leaning core devs. If we have left-leaning core devs, that's a problem.
I don't even know where this left-leaning thing comes from. I don't know if any of the core devs are left-leaning. Like,
it's just because like Gloria's
like
a girl.
Just because they're not rabid libertarians. Yeah, they assume that Gloria's left-leaning
because she's a girl.
Yeah, when in fact she is constantly driven forward by based prophetic dreams that guide her development on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, well, I sort of like included this tweet just because I was thinking about consensus as like a combination of technical and social, and just thinking like, can code be left leaning or right leaning? I mean, it kind of can in the sense that you could drive Bitcoin in certain values, right? Like you could say, oh, we mostly value privacy. I don't think you could really call that left or right leaning, but like you could say we value privacy, or we value like freedom to transact, like put whatever in a transaction or whatever. And those things sort of have political implications.
I can't even understand. Like, I mean, the some, fucking moron clipped some clip of Gloria talking to Peter McCormick on what Bitcoin did. And she's basically saying that like your argument of you don't like certain bytes is not a technical argument.
It's not relevant to developers.
It's not relevant. It's not a technical argument. I don't think that Gloria is interested in shitcoins at all.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't fucking like shitcoins. She doesn't like the shitcoining. She probably thinks it's fucking stupid. But she thinks then when you show up and you have like the big hex printout of 2 transactions and you like take your marker and you put like red on this one and like green on this one. She's like, as a dev, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
Like, you don't approve of these bytes? Well, like, don't look at them.
Yeah.
You know? She's not saying like, oh yeah, all transactions are like good. She's saying as a dev, like the way that you feel about certain like hex bytes is not an actionable, you know, item that can guide development.
Yeah. I love Gloria in that clip. She's so Hell Money podcast coded.
Very much so.
I'm like, we need more girls saying like in Bitcoin. And if you can't handle it, it just means you don't talk to enough women.
Yeah, I say like a lot. I'm very feminized.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's because you live in the communist state of California.
That's right. And I talk to you too much.
Yeah. You're highly feminine.
Yeah, I mean, look at
You're
me
literally
wearing my
a
fucking Labubu outfit. Yeah, this is crazy.
And we kind of got through everything.
Yep.
Good luck to the core devs. Good luck.
I think
they're gonna be fine.
My prediction is that it's fine.
They're gonna be fine.
This is the peak hysteria around the time that v30 is being released, right? This is v30 is being released. This is an event. Everybody can, you know, sort of, you know, gather around this event and can hype it up or make it negative or whatever. v30 is going to be released. Op returns are going to be unlimited forevermore. And the knots people are just not going to be able to do anything. This event will recede into the past. The excitement over it will go down. And we just won't be talking about this 6 months from now.
I hope.
Yep.
I mean, that's the best outcome.
Yep.
Worst outcome is that we're just stuck in a loop because we don't know how to do anything else. And we don't know how to face the real problems that challenge Bitcoin and its future. And so we just stay in like a loop of things that we know that we feel comfortable shit posting about.
I think number go up is going to save us. Bitcoin is 120,000. It's up 1.3%.
Yeah, why is it up right now?
Nobody knows. Bitcoin just goes up and down. Nobody knows, you know, but I think it's going to go up further. I'm predicting a run to 150K.
My mom hasn't texted me yet, so it's not really that far up.
Yeah.
Because whenever my mom always likes to be like, why is Bitcoin up? Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know, Mom.
Yep.
I don't have answers.
But we're going to get 150K Bitcoin, and then people are just going to stop talking about it. They're going to stop talking about the fucking op returns. Who cares? You've got 150K Bitcoin.
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, we can manifest and pray for this outcome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, thoughts and prayers for 150K Bitcoin saving us all.
Mm-hmm.
Any final messages?
No, I got nothing. Just like, I mean, guys, just like chill. Like,
I mean, no one who's a Knots person is watching this podcast.
You don't have to care about the spam. You just don't. You don't have to care about the spam. You're not going to stop it. You don't need to care about it. It doesn't impact you. We just got through fucking sub 1 sat V-byte summer. We're going to be heading into fewer than 1 sat per V-byte fall. You can just chill.
I mean, anyone who's watching you in a Labubu hood say that
After
is
an
already
hour.
pro spam.
That's
They're
right,
pro
yeah.
spam. They're
pro-spam.
spamming all
love
over
it.
the place.
Yeah, all over the place.
But if you are pro spam,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the advice is just know that the Knots guys will not win.
Yeah,
the Nazis never win.
The Nazis never win.
The good guys will prevail.
Always.
The Labubu hood contingency will prevail. So, you know, if you can get some good engagement from weighing in or whatever, then do it. But don't get too spun up.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Well, good luck out there.
Happy spooky season.
Yeah, have fun being internet warriors out there. Get off Twitter, touch grass, like, comment, and subscribe.
All right.
Yep.
See you guys.
Bye.